What's up, people? Welcome to another episode of I Am Negan, a TWD Universe podcast. My name is Adam Bale. I'm a senior editor over at the Koalition with a K, the Koalition.com, and I'm joined by editor-in-chief of the Koalition, Richard Bailey Jr.
What's up, Adam? What's up, listeners and viewers?
And Throwdown Show over on Twitch, Carlos Romero.
Yo, what's going on?
What's going on is we are here, people. This is Fear the Walking Dead, Season 8, Episode 9, Sanctuary. We are a few days late, mainly because life, busyness, lots of stuff going on. Got Carl still on location, running around the world. And over at the Koalition, we got a lot of content, a lot of stuff going on. It's a busy time, so we got all kinds of stuff covering TV shows, Invincible, and game reviews. So please go check that out. There's a lot of work being done on the site, so that is what's going on. And of course, we still got this that's dragging its feet. Fear the Walking Dead. Holy moly. Before we get into it, thanks again for all the support over on YouTube and iTunes and Spotify, and for the follows and for people sticking with us through all these years of covering The Walking Dead, because I'm sure, like myself and you guys, you've heard, oh, well, Walking Dead's done. That's it. The mothership is over, and these spin-offs are going to be pretty bad. Well, the spin-offs so far, Dead City and Daryl Dixon, have been very good. But what does need to end is this show. The Fear of the Walking Dead. It's sad, but we'll get into it. But just real quick, thanks again for all the support. If you haven't seen it, which I'm sure you have, but if you haven't, you can go on AMC Plus or just AMC itself. Probably on your DVR if you haven't watched it, but then again, you're not missing much. So we're gonna break it down and discuss and pretty much bitch about this episode, because that's been the pattern for this second half of the final season. It's been a real letdown. And before I jump into all of that, just to let you guys know, it's not, we don't like poo-pooing this show. It's not like we want it to fail. We don't. We liked it. We liked Fear. We liked where it was going. We figured it was going to end strong. It has not. The storytelling, everything, just the only plus is the cinematography and the set design. I love it. It looks great. They get some great shots of these characters, but man, the story and how things play out, which we'll get into, it just, it's a mess. It's a mess that you spend more time in disbelief of what you're hearing than appreciating the fiction that's being displayed with walkers and people trying to survive and all this stuff. I mean, case in point, the fact that they even find Dwight at Sanctuary, which is the name of the episode, that Dwight shows up at Sanctuary. Meanwhile, they're in Texas over Padre, and I had to look it up. That's a 20-hour drive. So they took a 20-hour drive in the shot in the dark to think, well, where would he go? Well, I guess he would go back to Sanctuary. Really? No. It's those type of things. But anyway, thanks again for tuning in, and let's get into it. So we knew this episode was going to be about Dwight. They hyped it up for through the preview from last episode. It was like, oh, it's going to be Dwight's right. And they talked about Sanctuary, and they showed some of the flashbacks. Now, before I jump into it, did anybody think we were going to see Negan? Rich, Carlos, did you guys think Negan was going to pop up?
Definitely not, because there's no way in hell they're going to afford Jeffrey D. Morgan. So I definitely did not expect him.
Rich, you didn't expect him. I don't think we did.
No, I didn't expect them, but they did have a lot of flashbacks, so you kind of saw him and a few other characters.
Yeah, and that was
Daryl.
Yeah, yep. We saw really quick flashbacks, and we got some dialogue with that, with hearing Negan talk and do that whole thing. But it's just for them to start this episode off, and I get it. It's Dwight, and they named the Sanctuary, and I'm like, are they really going to do that? Are they really going to have him go back to Sanctuary? And they did. And that just broke everything for me because of the distance. It just doesn't add up. And then that one rando that finds him. What is Dwight doing? He's in his shack, right? Just hanging out with a lantern. Why is he near Sanctuary if he has no plans of ever going in Sanctuary? That's never brought up. Because when when Sherry and June and Dove, when they find him, they're still surprised that he was even there, which again doesn't make sense. Like it's all over the place, right? Because think about it. He's in a cabin or a house or whatever. Guy comes in. Right? They have a little altercation. The guy's like, hey, listen, I'm not trying to rob you or anything. I just got robbed and they took my insulin. I'm a diabetic. He doesn't believe it because he was like, I've heard this before with Sherry and her sister and the whole thing. He says, no. These people took it. They took it. Please help. He's like, okay, fine. So he goes over to help and they're in Sanctuary. Did he not know how close he was to Sanctuary? Like he looks at the place and he says, they're in there. Then forget it. You're on your own. Why did you travel this far to get that close? He's in Virginia from Texas. Like, doesn't mean when he had said that in the last episode he was leaving, going to go home or whatever, that would be Alexandria then, right? Because he left Alexandria looking for Sherry. So I don't understand why that didn't make sense. Didn't make any sense. Then to get inside, and he gets the flashbacks as we mentioned, where he sees the furnace and all that stuff, and he just pauses. And no surprise, you're standing out in the open. You know there's bad guys in there. You know all the history. And God points a gun at him. He has this little one-on-one. Hey, listen, you stole something from my friend, and I just want to get that medicine back, and then I'll be on my way. You'll never see me. And the guy says, well, you stole from me. What? What did Dwight steal? What did we miss something? Was he robbing them?
He's just talking about the medicine because he's considering it's his now. So it's like, oh, now you're stealing from me.
But he's not stealing if he's asking for it. I don't know. It's
he didn't ask for it. He took it and then he got caught.
Yeah. This is the insulin that he stole from them.
Yeah. That's right. All right.
Yeah.
So then that explains that, because that threw me off when he said I'm stealing from him. I said, but it's not yours. But I don't know, whatever. But the funny that there was like two good moments in this episode, and it was this: is looking at the furnace, the guy. It's pointing the gun and talking all this trash and stuff. And Dwight just shoves the gun out the way, grabs the guy's head and chucks him into the furnace. Right. So you hear him screaming way too long. I mean, if you got flames in your face like that, I'm assuming it just melt away your vocal cords, all that. But whatever, we keep hearing him scream. He continues to stand there. And then, of course, he gets shot, right? That looked like Dwight got shot. Did he not get shot?
Yeah, he did get shot.
That's never brought up again.
Well, no, because when June and them caught up to him, they actually patched him up, so he's fine at that point.
How? I know, but that's the thing. How? Like, was it a graze? They didn't really. I don't know. And the reason why I bring that up and I'm pissed is because, as we know, Dove goes on her own little adventure. We don't see what happens, but she came back and she was shot. It's like she's like, oh, but the bullet's still in me. It's too much. It was too much for me, But just to see him come out, this is back with Dwight. He goes out. It starts having this breakdown, and that's where we get the flashbacks with Daryl. He's screaming, Daryl, you should have done this. There should be more people inside Sanctuary. There was a guy who just shot at you. Should be other ones, and you're out here screaming all this stuff. Now, again, it looked like he was close to Sanctuary. The dude that he was getting the medicine for died, turned into a walker, so he had to put him down. Having this whole panic attack. Car shows up, Sherry, June, Dove. They pick him up. Problems, because right there, they're at Sanctuary, right? They know that did he really stumble miles away from the warehouse that is Sanctuary? Like, it didn't.
It didn't make sense. And I mean, I guess his original house was always right there.
That's what I'm saying. He didn't do a commute. When the guy found him in his house, it was dark. He says, hey, these guys robbed me. He said, okay, let's go. Poof, they're over there. So that tells me not that far, right? So yeah, he was that close to Sanctuary. Guess he never knew. I don't know, whatever. But the fact that they show up, the crew that they were looking for him, and they find him there. And then when it turns into daylight, and like you said, they patched him up, everything is fine. And Dove had snuck away. Wherever she comes back, she's shot. And a whole other group shows up. They have a little one-on-one with Dwight about, hey, what you did, and we have medical supplies. We'll do a trade-off, blah, blah, blah. And Sherry's like, wait, what place? What? Sanctuary? Yeah, you picked them up right in front of the damn place. The last scene. How do you, what is going on here? Like, and then they were like, oh, well, let's just jump in the car. We can race back over there because they came out here on foot. So we'll have, X amount of time to get the medicine, patch her up, and then we're good to go. And that's the plan. So everybody left Sanctuary to go hunt down Dwight on foot when he took off in a truck. I don't want to nitpick people. I'm not trying to pick this show apart just for the hell of it. It's just these are things that just come up that you start thinking. It's like this doesn't make sense.
Well, it's not only just that; it's just the premise of this whole episode. We've been complaining about characters going back to old places that really doesn't serve the overall narrative that well. Talked about Mo and Morgan going, well, at least Morgan going back to Georgia to get his son, and now we're going this whole thing with
Sanctuary. Yeah.
No, what's the name of the
Padre?
No, her name, the one that with the oxygen.
Oh, Madison.
Madison going with this whole thing with her kids, and now Dwight and his girl is like, they broke up like the last scene of the
They
last
broke
half of
up
the season.
multiple times. She left him. He tracked her down. She had her own group for a while with little creepy masks. Then she broke up with him. It's like, no, that's it. I have a new life. Then they got back together. Then they broke up again when she said she wanted to go kill Negan. That was during last season. Remember, it was that. He's like, no, we can start a new family. We can start a new life. And so she stayed. It's been a back and forth.
Yeah, and we mentioned this during the last part of the season. We said they're only breaking up just so they can get back together for some dumb reason, and this was the reason. So, just the whole premise of everything has been a down point for us. So, not to mention the execution hasn't been that great. So, it's unfortunate, but it is what it is.
Yeah, let me just make a quick comment. I agree with everything Carlos said. It seems to me the theme of this particular show is about the characters dealing with trauma or having to revisit the past to get over some of the issues they didn't get over with previously. So this is why you had Morgan going back to Georgia, and of course addressing the situation with his son. You have now Dwight and Sherry in this episode.
We have Madison looking for her zombie daughter roaming around.
Yeah. So I guess that's what they aim to do. But I agree 1,000% with what Carlos said. Although I will say this. Carlos made the comment, the execution has not been as good. I'm just going to say the execution has been garbage. So that's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, I mean, even the scene, and I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but the scene with Dove on the table when they're in the sanctuary, and they're asking Dwight to pull the bullet out, and she's like, "You couldn't even save your son." It was
no one was. That was just uncalled for and out of place, and I don't know what the writers were thinking. Like, what kind of reaction did they think they were trying to pull from the audience for something like that, for a line to be delivered at that moment? At that point, just it kept going though with that, because then she started trash talking June with everything. And I was like, no, you can't do anything. This is the main reason why I wanted to leave Padre, because you guys, you don't know how to run stuff. You don't know how to do anything right. This and that. She's the only one that's going to, you know what? Let her die. Just let this girl down.
And it's Dove. It's not even one of like the main characters. She was there for the first part of the season where, she was skeptical and stuff. She was always a person. It's like, oh, maybe
She was
get
the
on
one
our
training
side.
Mo. She was the one training Mo.
She was the one training Mo, and then suddenly they needed someone. It's like, coach, we need a fifth player. Let's to settle this whole Dwight uh June and all this stuff. It's like, let's get Dove, and then they just threw that in. It's that doesn't really serve the like it just doesn't fit.
No,
It
no.
seems like they just got her because they needed another character to create tension.
Yeah, and here it is. We have 3 episodes left, and so we're expecting some deaths. Just that's it. Just throw everything at the wall, go all out, throw some crazy deaths, and that not just for the sake of killing them off, but if it's meaningful. And there is a few moments in this episode where there could have been some meaning behind the death, whether it's Dove dying, and that brings back memories of Finch, which is Dwight and Sherry's son who passed. And so then that pulls them back together because of another loss. It was like, shoot, we tried to help this one, but maybe we can, they're grieving. And that was the reason why Dwight left. Well, you're trying to help the situation. And yeah, Dwight took blame even for her getting shot. But no one, he didn't know that they were going to come after him and travel and try to track him down. It wasn't like one of those situations where he's like, well, they're going to find me. I need their help. No. So, and she went running off to do who knows what. Remember that happened while they were patching him up. It was very weird when that happened off camera. But they had a few of those moments where I was like, all right, this is when we say our goodbye to Dwight, because here it is. It's Sanctuary. He's got the flashbacks. He's fighting a bunch of no-name goons that are there. They're not even former members of the community. They're just some stragglers that so happen to live there. And that doesn't really happen, because he goes into his old room and he sees some drawings on the wall, and Sherry sees it, and they have a little heart-to-heart about memories and this and that. And she locks him in there. And she says, no, I'm going to take care of this stuff, because you got all these walkers that are outside, because they heard all the noise. They're banging on the walls. And it was interesting with this, because I'm like, all right, so they're banging on the wall trying to get in. It's like, no, they're trying to not only get in, but the whole place is going to collapse. But the part that threw me off is we see the walkers banging on the actual structure, right, of the building. But as we saw and we see later, they're also around the fence area, banging the fence. So there still has to be an opening, or else it wouldn't be that close to the structure. You know what I mean? It was just weird, because Sherry goes out there and she's just pulling like, a one-man army, Rambo style, just like bucking shots, headshots, boom, 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 boom. She's on the walkie. Jones like, what's going on? I hear gunshots. I was like, I'm handling this. Where's Dwight? Oh, I locked him in the room. He was going to come out here and do a death wish type thing, and I had to put stops with, that the community, the kids need him. He trained them. I'm like, well, he did a bad job training them, because Madison and Daniel didn't bring any of those trained kids whenever they went on their trips, right? It's always the same group that we know. It's like, where are the new faces? Where are these trained soldiers? I don't, that fell flat with that whole reasoning. But she's bucking all the shots, and then she gets too close to a fence. Walkers bash the fence. It falls on her. Now she's trapped under the fence. So, did you guys think this is when we lose Sherry? I will raise my hand. I said yes.
Yeah, that needed to happen. If they made the decision to take Dwight and Sherry out, a romantic death together, I would have been fine with that, because as they kept going back and forth, Dwight was talking about, oh yeah, you had the same idea I had, which was to come out here and possibly sacrifice yourself. So I would have preferred that to actually happen to the characters instead of what did happen. But obviously, I guess they have to keep them alive for some reason going into the final episodes. But yeah, it didn't make any kind of sense to me. But yeah, somebody should have died in that scenario right there. where you're basically on the ground and the walkers are right there. The fence only separating you. There's no way in hell. In real life, somebody is going to die in that situation. You're not going to survive that. So that was a bunch
even
of
all the pressure, with all the walkers that are all just laying on top, trying. They only showed that one walker,
Yes.
but when they did a far shot, you saw there was a bunch of other walkers in the area near that fence. They would all just gang up on top, and that the pressure alone right there probably would have killed her.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Man, and then they started showing quick cuts with Dwight, and instead of him punching the door or the window trying to get out, he's punching the wall, and he's just banging up. He's just smashing his hands. You see blood and all this stuff. I'm like, what? Why? Yes, we get it. He's frustrated. He hears all the stuff going on. Then you're fighting at the door. You do everything you can to break down the door. And then, of course, June opens up and it's like, oh, she needs your help. She needs your help. And he hears it and he goes running out there. And now he's perfectly fine to hold the weapon. He's got his gun. He's shooting. He's got his axe. And he's chopping up. And they got a lot of cool little scenes here. They're killing these walkers. But it's not about that. It's about their conversation and how they're trying to figure out the situations. And he's like, oh, no, you came out here to sacrifice yourself. And that's why you wanted me to stay locked away. And you thought I was going to. It was just, who cares? I don't want this conversation in this moment. It didn't make sense. So he killed the walker. And what? He pulled the whole fence up. And she crawled out. I can't. It's too much. It's too much filling the blanks. It's very much, if I want to give it any kind of credit, it's like a comic book in a way, because comic books are by frames, and of course you have to cut some parts out. You're not going to do like a flip book, for every motion. But man, it doesn't add up when you're like, oh, there's a herd of walkers putting pressure on the fence. He kills one, he pulls around, and then now they're all dispersed and they're giving him space. And we get it. It was done for the dialogue, so that way they could have their conversation heart to heart about what's going on in their relationship and situation. But we didn't need that part. We didn't need that here. There's too much of that. We've talked about it before, and I'll say it again. It's like a novella. This is like a soap opera. Really on that level of all this dialogue that makes no damn sense, that is very out of place and still happening all the way to the end. And that if somebody was writing this down, and if you're a viewer listening, you close your eyes and it's like, how would you put this together? If you were in that situation, right? Or if you were trying to put yourself in that situation, are these the arguments and the conversation you're going to have in that moment? No. Because common sense is, let's clear a path, let's get back inside, and let's focus on getting everybody to safety. No, they have this whole little, rather kind of long, this conversation back and forth. She's bucking off shots with endless rounds, and he's using his axe, and it's as if they have the situation under control. And it's eye-rolling. At that point, it's one of those where you can't even, it's not to take it serious, but you can't. It's Walking Dead, it's zombies and all that stuff, but it's not immersive. It takes you out of it. It takes you out of the moment, because you don't feel. You're 1 minute you want to feel worried and concerned for the characters, but then when the characters aren't even that concerned about what's happening, because they're focused on some other stuff about Finch and the life they had and all this, then it's like, wait, they have it under control, I guess. They don't care. They're good. So then, just hear them out then. The killing is just to distract us. And what happens? Of course, the goons show up and they start bucking off shots, and Dwight and Sherry go running inside. We get some really cool moments inside the sanctuary. Things are falling, and then debris and walkers and all this stuff. And there was a funny moment where the main bad guy, we never get his name or whatever, and he grabs Dwight, bangs him against the furnace, the same spot where he was standing before when he put his friend, and you can still hear his friend in the furnace, but now he's a walker. And he's like, oh, this is going to be great. And this whole thing, he opens up the furnace, but once he does that, the dude comes out and attacks him and starts chomping on him. And it's like, oh, all right, whatever. That was uneventful. I thought there'd be more of a fight or something. but whatever. And they go and they hide in another part of the furnace area that's secure because it's steel. And then they have another touching moment of all of them talking. And they give June a pep talk because she's still not sure if she can perform the surgery and all that and take the bullet out. And Dove is still talking like she's okay. We saw her before walking around and sort of collapse. I was like, oh, you have a bullet in you and you're bleeding out. I don't, whatever, that part. But it worked out, of course. They take the bullet out. And the best scene, I think, from this episode is once they leave the furnace and they get that far off shot, that wide shot, and we see everything's destroyed. Everything has collapsed. All the walkers are all dead because I guess everything fell on them or whatever. But it was really cool to see that set and everything laid out. And before I go any further, what did you guys think of just how they closed that part? That Dove is fine, and Sherry and Dwight are fine, and June is back to performing her surgeries, and all the walkers are dead, and everything collapsed on them. That worked for you guys, Rich?
It did not work for me. The best scene for me of this episode was when I saw the credits rolling at the end of the episode.
Nice.
I mean, I will say this, like I said, they took a very safe approach to keep all these characters alive. So I would like to see what the payoff is with that, because there's only 3 episodes left. And I think we all know and can easily predict that Troy will probably get killed. And yeah, and perhaps we're going to see Strand finally get killed as well, I guess. I mean, we'll have to wait and see, but I just feel like I wasn't really impressed. Not with any of the episodes so far this season. I haven't really been impressed. So with the last 3 episodes, I'm gonna keep my expectations low. But I will say this episode, I guess you could say it was okay compared to the other episodes we got in the last couple of weeks. But still, the dialogue, the writing, it's very lackluster, I guess you could say. Like you said, Adam, like it feels like you're watching a novella, and I don't care about that. I want to see people actually get killed, because in real life, if this stuff happens, everybody's not going to survive. So I think it need to be a little bit more realistic with what happens to certain characters.
Yeah,
so
more tension, more stressful situations. Just feel that uneasy feeling that at any moment one of these characters can just go. It is the final season. It is the final episodes. They set it up perfectly for Sherry to go with the fence, for Dwight to go when he went out there to go save. He could have just said, hey, get back in, and then maybe he gets shot or whatever. He starts fighting with the guy outside. And I mean, the fact that he got shot and is perfectly fine to still wield an axe and do all this stuff. It's like, oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I mean, it wasn't even June that helped. It was Dove. It's like, no, how?
And not to mention, as you already said, they had the scene where Dwight was punching the wall, but yet moments later, this guy is using an axe to take out the walkers. So yeah, it's just silly stuff like that doesn't make any kind of sense.
No, it doesn't. and that's what I'm saying. I was like, how, when they were sitting down in the writer's room, did this make sense? Did everybody gather around? Like, yeah, that works. I like that. Not one person said, well, wait, I raised my hand. Question: if he's smashing his hands profusely against a wall and there's blood, we're gonna put blood there, right? Yes, lots of blood, and then we're gonna go a nice zoom in on his hands all mangled. Okay, that sounds all right. That works. What happens after that? Well, June gets him out. He gets his axe, and then he goes to town to help Sherry, just killing all the war. How? We just showed it. We focused showed it. It wasn't like, oh, well, we're going to hint that there's damage. No, you zoomed in on his hands. You zoomed in on the wall with the blood splat from his hands. You were telling us he banged up his hands. His hands are a mess. But then he's perfectly fine, and they don't ever bring it up.
Well, let me just say, I know how AMC responded to the person that asked that question. They said, "Thank you. Your services are no longer needed. So take care of yourself. And we wish you well."
I wish you well in all your future endeavors. Go out there, go be somebody. It's a shame. It's a shame because this seems like common sense stuff. We're not going too deep in it. It's like, hey, you showed us this, and then this happened. You had him get shot in one scene, and just a couple hours later, he's walking and talking and running around like there's no problem. No. Meanwhile, you have another one also shot with the bullet. They said they can't take it out. It's too close to an artery, but yet she's also walking and talking. And then at some point, she even tried to take the bullet out herself. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Are you making it seem like this is a splinter? It would have been more convincing and believable if it was glass. She had a piece of glass in her than a bullet. Oh, they stabbed her or a knife wound or something like that. The same thing with Dwight. If he got stabbed, okay. No, you're focusing with guns and bullets. Sorry, people don't heal that fast. It's too much. It's too much. And if that's the case, if everyone's getting shot, you got to kill somebody off. Dove should have gone. She should have flown off like a dove. Woof. Gone. No, didn't happen. Sherry, perfect setup with the fence. No, didn't happen. Dwight, perfect setup also, going out there to save her, do the whole thing. Like, all right, this is when it happens. She runs out of bullets. He's swinging like a madman. What are we going to do? I don't know what we're going to do. I know what I'm going to do, and he says, go. And he just starts swinging like crazy. And then they overwhelm him. Do something. I feel like the last impactful death, and go ahead, leave your comments on here. What you think is the most impactful death on The Walking Dead? Any show, any of the franchise, any of the series. I would say Carl. I know a lot of people are going to say Glenn. No, I knew that was coming from the comics. But Carl, I did not know was coming because in the comics, he lets it to the very end. He never died. So for him to die, that was such a shock. I could not believe it because I'm like, well, shit, where do you go from here? Go ahead, Rich.
Oh, no, I agree 100% for the regular Walking Dead. But I will say this, for this particular show, I still think John Dory getting killed, that was...
Man, that hurt.
The cowboy?
Yeah,
yes,
the cowboy.
Yes.
Yes, for this show, definitely, I agree. Cowboy John. That was unexpected. The way he died, the way they built him up for the longest, like even on Talking Dead, remember, they're like, oh, this is great, there's a cowboy, he's awesome with a 6-shooter, it's this is what we wanted, this is awesome. And then he just gets killed off. It's like, why did the actor want to leave? I don't know if I ever looked into it, if there was more to it. If there's anyone that should have stayed on that show, it should have been him. Then they brought in the dad, remember, they out of nowhere, and the dad, he was a known actor. He had a big part as well last season. But
he died also.
Yeah, he died also. And he had a noble death. He went out trying to save everybody. Same thing. But man, yeah, that's right. John, Cowboy John. That was sad. For this show, yes. It wasn't what you call it, the son. Oh man, Nick was a surprise because I really thought the show was going to focus around him, especially with Madison gone, the stepdad gone. A lot of characters, a lot of actors were leaving the show during that time, and I was taken back. I was like, well, this is it. This is going to be like I don't know if Carlos, if you know that there was a group called the Menudos. And that's what Ricky Martin was part of. And it was a singing group from Puerto Rico. And they would always rotate a member of the group, right? And they had a TV show also. And it's like, they would have a bunch of them. And then next season, somebody leaves and a new person comes in. And then the show goes on. And I was like, shit, we're about to lose the whole original cast of this show. And we're going to get all new members soon. And it almost happened that way because all we had was Victor, original member, Daniel, who came back magically after being looked like he was dead in the house fire, but they brought him back. But I think it was because of everything that was happening with all the cast members leaving. Madison, when she had left, so it was Victor,
Alicia,
Alicia, and that's it. Yeah, that was it until Daniel, because Nick was gone, Madison was gone, husband was gone, and that was it. That was it. And that's when I remember when the showrunners were talking about, or what's his name, the main dude, the showrunner that looks like Daniel Bryant. Oh, you know what I'm talking about. Oh, the main dude. That's right. And they had asked him, when Fear launched, will there be any crossover with Walking Dead? And he said no. He says, we have strong enough cast, we have strong enough stories. It's going to be on the opposite end of the United States. It's taking place on the very edge of the West Coast and all this stuff. No, I don't see that, and we don't need that. Well, that quickly changed, because then we got Morgan saying he need to go on his, adventure, his quest for inner peace or whatever, and he wanders off, and they did a whole montage until he finds himself over on the West Coast. Poof. And then same thing with Dwight. I gotta go find my wife, Sherry. She's out there somewhere. I gotta go find her, and same thing. And then he finds his group. So they broke the rules. And I remember the actor that plays Morgan. What was his name? Do you remember his name?
Lenny James.
Lenny James. And he had asked. It was like, it was in one of the interviews. Oh man, I wish if I remembered to, because for a long time I remembered the interview, but it was like, oh, what made you want to take this role to go? He's like, well, they told me I was going to be the lead. They said, you're going to be the lead of this show, and it's because they had just lost their lead. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. If you're no longer going to be a supporting cast member and they're going to build the show around you, which they did, then yeah, go for it. Even if it doesn't really make much sense, but they did it. So anyway, I started rambling there, but oh yeah, that's right. I was talking about the most memorable death. So yeah, you're right. I almost forgot about that. John Doring. That was a big one, unexpected for this show. But since then, we haven't seen anything else. Like this whole thing with Charlie last episode, couldn't really care about it. It didn't really do anything for me. It was a pointless death. She didn't have to die the way she did. There's plenty of other ways. And then they put that whole warning disclaimer. Oh, if you know someone with suicidal thoughts, stuff like, well, this show didn't need this scene. It didn't do anything to progress the story. We're not feeling anything like with John. When John died, we felt it. We're like, well, where do they go now? That he was such a main character. He was.
Oh no, I agree. You felt it. You also felt it because his wife had to be the one to kill him. So that's why I said,
oh yeah,
because you saw their entire relationship on the show. So that's why I say, yeah, that was a more impactful death for sure.
She didn't bring that up when she was talking to Dove either, about people that she lost and stuff. And she talked about it mainly against kids, and she talked about her daughter and the whole thing with the medicine, all that stuff. But she was like, yeah, and I also should have brought it up. I also lost my husband. I've had losses in my life. But yeah, at the end, what happens? They all get together, literally as a happy family, because Dwight says, all right, we're going to work this out with Sherry. He looks at you. Remember, I told you way back, you're going to be part of the family. I made you something. Here you go. You're part of my family. And you, girl, you're Dove, right? She gives her real name. I don't care what it is. We know her as Dove. That's it. They're calling you Dove. And he says, you're part of the family too. So now they got an adopted daughter. And they're going to get in the car and they're heading back to Padre to go fight Madison's fight. Because he's like, what's going on? Oh, well, some guy had some beef with Madison and wants to take over Padre. And he's like, all right, we're going to do this for Finch. And they look up and they see a bird, which is Finch. And they're like, oh, he's looking down on us. I'm like, my God. Come on now. You didn't even care about the boy. Remember? Didn't he? Was it her? It's one of them left. Or they couldn't even say that they were his parents. Right? That was the whole thing. It was a deal so that way they could still be around him. They couldn't tell him. Yeah, that was it, because they said, we're your parents. They told him. He didn't even know. And he was like 9 years old.
Yeah. That's exactly what it was. One one thing I will say, yeah, obviously, you don't like to see kids getting killed on these shows. Obviously, you don't want to see that. But I do want to say this. You made the comment earlier about the Carl death being impactful. That made sense because we saw Carl grow up on the actual show. We didn't really get enough time with this character to care that much about the character. So that's why
with any of these kids, with Mo, with Finch, it was just it feels rushed. And when they do, and this is always the downfall what you hear with these shows when they do time jumps, because a lot happens within that time, and you have to tell that by story because you can't visually show it because it didn't happen. And then hope that the audience connects. Again, leave in the comments. Did you connect with any of these kids? Did you connect with Mo? Did you connect with Dove? Did you connect with Finch? Did you feel for them? Did you feel for the parents? Do you care? Because that's what this is all about. Once you hear the slow piano music playing in the background, which this episode had plenty of, they're hoping that this pulls on your heartstrings like a walker, and then it causes the waterworks for you to like, oh, I feel it. Oh, no, I didn't feel it. I was because, like you said, we haven't spent enough time with these young characters to feel anything.
Exactly. Yep.
So I don't care whether it happened on camera or off camera. It doesn't matter. It's the main characters that we care about. And there was plenty of moments here that they could have had a meaningful death and just moved on. And it didn't happen. It didn't happen. I don't know if we're going to see any of that come to the next final episodes. I'm still amazed that Strand is part of this show. If there's anyone that should have died come the second or third season, it should have been him. And they could, because he's flip-flopped so many times. 1 minute he's friend, next minute he's foe, then he's friend, then he's foe, then he's friend. It's constant, right? He always puts himself in a position of power in some group or runs his own group. And I'm like, when does this stop? When does that? We really thought the beginning of this season that it was going to end with the big battle. Remember, they kept hinting, this is it. We're going to take the tower. One of us is going to fall. Well, it happened, but we didn't see it. It's right. We just see everybody leaving because everything is in ruins. I'm like, well, why couldn't you just show up the battle? Oh, the production. All right, whatever. Well, then don't say it. Don't do it. Don't tease something and don't deliver. That's worse. Whatever, man. That's why I don't have really any high expectations for this big battle, for the Padre. I don't. Do you think anything major is going to happen, Carlos or Rich? Like, did you predict like, oh, this is it? We're going to see some epic big war. We don't even know how many people this dude has with him. I'm blanking on his name, but the one that has the beef.
I feel
Troy.
like, Troy.
Yeah, Troy.
I feel like,
yeah, go ahead.
I feel like the best thing to do with this show is just to keep your expectations low.
Oh, they make it easy for that, though. That's why they make it so easy. It's like,
so I'm not gonna. Go ahead, Rich.
No, I just want to say I'll piggyback on what Carlos said. Keep your expectations low. What I expect to see in the penultimate episode, they're going to have a standoff with Troy once again. And then the final episode, maybe the last 10 minutes or so, then you'll see them actually go, toe to toe and take him out. That's probably what's going to happen. Going to be wasting a lot of time. And one other thing I do want to mention is there still is supposed to be an episode where they go into Troy's backstory about what happened to him. So I'm assuming that's probably not next week. That's going to be right before that last episode. But I guess we have to wait and see how that plays out.
I'm going to say something crazy. I know listeners, viewers, and I'll be like, what? But this is what I think is going to happen, only because I think it's going to be dumb. I think it's going to be dumb. A big falling out. It's going to happen. A big war, whatever. Maybe we see it, maybe we don't, but we're going to see a lot of bodies of no-name characters that we don't care about dead. A helicopter is going to show up. It's going to be a Civic Republic helicopter. And our boy Rick Grimes is going to come out. And he's going to say, "Where's Morgan?" It's going to be something dumb. And the reason why is because I think they're going to try as best as they can to remind viewers that Rick is still alive and that there is another show, another spinoff coming with himself and Michonne. And I think that's something that they're going to do.
Well, I think that's I don't know if anything that extreme will happen, but I will say I do agree 100% with you that they're going to put something at the end of this show to make you feel as though it was meaningful, just like they did with the other show that we reviewed, which was horrible. But then at the very end, they're like, oh, now they're in Paris, and this is somehow connected to what's happening in Daryl's story. So I definitely think they're going to do something like that at the end of this show, just to remind you, oh yeah, this is connected and this is also interesting. So you should stay tuned for this.
Yeah. And remember, the Civic Republic had a big role in last season, and pretty much last season with the whole nuke and all that going into it. And then they just stopped. They just killed it off. Like, why? It's like there was a whole other military group going on. There was a lot of story back and forth with who's part of it. Remember, they were tracking them down, and then it's gone. Forget it. We're scrapping that. But we know that plays a bigger part because they are the ones that took Rick Grimes. So why? And hell, World Beyond was all about it. I feel if anything that we've learned from that, besides introducing runners at the very end, is that they were really focusing on this new military force / group that had a bunch of outposts throughout the world. And they were going to try to, take over in a way and try to bring order in their own way. And I was like, okay, that's what you're telling us. That's the story. And that's started feeding off into fear. And then they just scrapped it. And now we're back to just random guys coming out that should have been dead, saying that now I'm the new bad. Now I want Padre. And it's like, oh, come on. Yeah, it makes it seem like the plan that they had with Padre was, well, there is no plan with Padre. It's going to be that fantasy land. It's like Oz from the Wizard of Oz. Like, it's a place that maybe they'll get to, maybe they won't. And then when they finally said, all right, we're going to get there, what is it going to be like? I have no idea. I have no idea what it's going to be like. Do we just put a bunch of kids there and that's it? Because that's the other part that they don't bring up is that, remember, there was still a bunch of adults that were there. Remember the ones that June was sniping and cutting their fingers off and letting them go back? Where are all these people? Where are all the adults that were running the place? They're all gone. So now they make it seem like it's just a bunch of kids roaming around that need Dwight to help them. Because as Sherry said, they will follow him to the ends of the earth. Don't know why. We haven't seen that. We never saw that connection with any of these kids with him. We can go on and on about that because this show is just not consistent with any of its storytelling. But, maybe it's our, like you said, expectations. We had high expectations, and it's below low right now. I don't expect anything because I don't see them delivering on anything impactful. So it is what it is. But thanks again, people, for hearing us rant about this episode. And hopefully you understood where we were coming from. And maybe you agree. And if you agree, then go ahead and comment and let us know what else you think is going to happen with this show. So thanks again for listening and watching. We're on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube. Of course, we are over at the Koalition. That's the Koalition with a K.com. You can check out all our other content that's up there, and we will be back for episode 10, which is next week, right? I don't think because remember that we brought it up. They were combining 2 episodes in 1 week, but that's the final 2 episodes, right? That's what's going on.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. So we will be back next week for episode 10. So thanks again. Peace and have a good week.
Peace.